Call this committee of the whole meeting to order, please. For our legislature this afternoon, our agenda item is to hear from the Allegheny County Fair Board, and they have several representatives back there. I've asked them, please don't let one of those guys speak, but they're arranged. That's fine. They're good folks. We're privileged to interact with them over when we had our legislative board meeting at the fair this summer. They do a great job. So who's going to go first? Mr. Hurd? This is the president of the Fair Board. If you could give your name and all there, please, and push the button on the microphone so you can be heard. And I'd like to request if you have, any of you that have statements, if they're prepared, if we could have a copy of that when we're done, because we're supposed to enter into the record as much as we can verbatim. So we have a fantastic secretary here taking notes, but if you had a written copy we could have afterwards, that would be great.
We'll make sure you do.
Roll call, Phil.
Oh, we got to have a roll call for, we got to know who's here.
We could probably, if they need a copy, maybe we could probably just make care of it.
Yeah. Okay, roll call.
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Mrs. Burdick. Here. Mr. Curran. Mr. Sear.
Here.
Mr. Demick.
Here.
Mr. Fanton.
Here.
Mrs. Hanchett. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Havey.
Here.
Mr. Healy.
Here.
Mr. Ricky.
Here.
Mrs. Ricketts Swales.
Here.
Mrs. Root. Mr. Rumfelt. Mr. Stockin.
Here.
11 present, 4 absent.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Harry Hurd, the present of the County Fair Board, and I'd like to thank you for inviting us here and to hear some of what we have in mind and for the future and what's happened presently. I'd also like to thank you for coming to the fair. I think it's 13 years now that you've held a meeting there, and I think I've sat through every one of them and enjoyed listening to how the county government works and know a little bit about it. I was a supervisor and a town supervisor for years and years, and school board and a few things like that, but never actually was on the county board. I took over in West Elmond as town supervisor when Jim Young became the first legislator on the very first board here. So that was some time ago. And I'm old enough, they said somebody's leaving, and it's me. I've been with the board. I've been on the fair board for 25 years now. So we have put together, and I don't know, if Don, if you have more of these that we could maybe pass around, or we don't have more. But we have put together, we met and put together a little bit about how many people and so forth show at the fair and show up at the fair. And rather than go through each individual thing, we did have, this year, our attendance was 23,000, a little over 23,000 at the fair for the 6 days. And most of those were paid admissions, not all of them. Some, we give out quite a few passes, and all the exhibitors get passes. We use the fairgrounds for a number of things other than the fair. Actually, we have 9 different groups that get to use the fairground free, and then we rent the fairgrounds to 7 others. And of the ones that actually get it free, one, the 4-H department uses the fairgrounds 14 times through the year. So even though there's only 9, that one uses it 14 times. There's a church that uses it 6 Sundays. The food distribution, the county food distribution uses it 4 times. So the fairgrounds is used quite a lot. I mean, not as much maybe as during the winter as during the summer, but I'm in Florida, so it doesn't matter at that point.
Does the 23,000 this year, how does that rank in normal? Is that above average? Or-
It's a little above our 10-year average, lower than last year. Last year was an exceptional year, but we didn't have a fair the year before, and we kind of felt that it was, people just came to the fair for something to do because they could finally get out. And besides just getting out, the weather was perfect for us a year ago. Rain, 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 rain. Nice weather for the fair. Rain, rain, rain. This year it's been super, super dry. I mean, just sort of the opposite. But we did have a good fair, and we had good weather for the fair, fortunately. We'll see, be sure that you guys can get a copy of this. And,
I think
we're getting it
right now.
done? Oh, beautiful. I should have known Brooke is actually from my old area. So I should have guessed he would do that.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. Great. In fact, my nephew, who is probably going to replace me on the board, was one of his high school, went to high school with him, so. So, paid admissions, we had 16,000. Like I say, that was a little above our 10-year average, but not much, because a few years ago, we had some really good years. We have a number of needs that we can't afford to do, and we do have those listed, like on the second page. If you want to take a look at that, one of our biggest problems right now is our driveways and the paving. I know that you fellows that were there saw some of that, and then we have considerably more driveways and walkways that we have changed some. We've widened the racetrack some, and we thank the county for their help in doing that. And there's some more work. We were sort of rushed and did some temporary things, and so there's some changes we need to make there, like paving the walkway in front of the bleachers, and maybe moving the bleachers back a little bit and having a return there. And then there's a lot of fencing that needs to be done. We actually put together this list on the second page of sort of our needs and what we sort of think are our priorities. And the paving, of course, is number one. We have a gas line that needs to be replaced. The water lines, we've replaced a bunch of water line last year. A year ago, we put a brand new line all the way from the office, clear down through a number of the barns and clear down to the horse arena. There's a number of electric things that need to be done. We've done a lot of changes on electric. We had a lot of poles put in and a lot of electric, but there's always some more that needs to be done. In fact, as the inspections this year, right during the fair, they gave us some more things that they asked us to try to get done. We think we need an additional bathroom. In fact, as we know we do. Our bathrooms are pretty old, and we're replacing, this year, we're actually going to replace one of the septic systems, and we feel on the other side of the fairgrounds, we need additional bathrooms. Just actually not enough to take care of it. And so we have designed a bathroom and hope to do something there. Property, we would like to buy some property that sits right behind the fairgrounds. And there is a possibility we could do that. And our parking has always been a problem. We were very fortunate this year, a neighbor back there let us park some on his property, and we didn't have to park downtown. And it always creates a problem. We get the old schoolhouse property, and we've parked there, and we had it all set to do it. But fortunately, this year we were able to put 200 or 300 cars way back on the neighbor, and didn't have to do that. But we would like to buy enough and prepare that ground where it's a little too wet. Prepare it so 2 or 3 acres, whatever we could get. Bleachers, we're short of enough space. Our grandstand is old but in pretty good shape. On the we consider it a relic, but it's considered a historical building as such. So we kind of need to keep that the way it is if we can, but we can add more bleachers, and we think we need to add more bleachers. We'd love to own our own roller. If you'll read what we wrote there, that we are not able to use our people, our volunteers on the loader and the roller and things, and we use the loader a lot for taking manure and so forth out, and working on the track for various events like tractor pull, demolition derby, things like that. We need to use the loader, so we would actually like to own a loader, and so that's one of the things we'd like to perhaps do. Paint the barn roofs. Pardon?
That's a front end loader for, maybe it might not know, or.
Yes. I mean, we've had the county's loader there for years. They always bring it up for us, and they bring a number of equipment for us, and without it, I'll be honest with you, without it, we'd have, for the last 25 years, we'd have been in a world of trouble. But there is a rule because of the unions and the insurance that it has to be a town, a county, or a state employee to drive it. And we, in the past, often have had somebody on the board that was, or somebody from the county that would take a week's vacation and drive for us. But that creates a problem when we don't have somebody and we're concerned. So we would like to own a loader. I mean, we would like to have you guys buy a new one and give us your old one. That's what we would love. Painting the barn roofs,
I had a quick question
Sure.
too. Just how much property are you looking to?
probably 2 or 3 acres.
2 or 3 acres?
Yeah, we
Okay.
could have bought it probably 20 years ago, and we thought it was too high, and now it would have been cheap.
Yeah.
mean,
I was
that-
hoping it was more you could buy.
At the time, we could have bought, I think it was 12 or 14 acres.
Okay.
And at $8,500 an acre, and we thought it was too high.
Right.
And it probably was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think it might have been cheap if we'd bought it back then.
Right.
But we didn't have the money, of course.
Right.
That was, I guess, probably Martha was the president, and I might be the only one left on the board that remembers all that.
Mm-hmm.
But we just couldn't afford it at that time. But we figure if we had 2 or 3 more acres, and what we have in mind is somewhere it's not steep and not a hillside,
Right.
and it would blend in pretty well with ours. Let's see. The third page kind of gives the number of exhibits and exhibitors that we have. And a lot of these exhibitors are there and don't go into our regular attendance either. I mean, a lot of these are kids, and some have passes, some don't, but our exhibitors don't, we don't charge any entry fees for any of our exhibitors, and we have a lot of 4-H kids, and have for years and years and years. I mean, I showed there when I was that big, and, does anybody have any questions? It'd probably be easier for me, and if I can't answer them, I know that everybody back here can. Yes.
Yes, Legislator Barnes. I'm all in favor of the county making a sizable contribution to the Fair Board. I've kind of taken it upon myself to look at the Allegheny County Fairgrounds compared to some of the other county fairgrounds, and I can remember 25, 30 years ago attending a lot of events at the fairgrounds outside of the fair. Since then, I think that the grandstand, the stage area, and so forth for programs is deplorable, in my opinion, compared to what I've seen at the other nearby county fairgrounds. I think that the Fair Board really should go for some vast improvements, especially to be able to attract people for shows and so on and so forth. Not necessarily agriculture related in all cases, but something that would make the county county population proud of the facility, and not what I see it today. I think it's, as I said before, I think it's in deplorable condition in a lot of ways, especially being able to have shows, country western stars and so. I went to the Cattaraugus County Fair, and according to the Times Herald, they had over 100,000 people attend this year. They had as many as 5,000 plus for a couple of shows, at which they charged the paid admission was $45 per person.
Correct.
We would have to make some vast improvements in order to attract that type of clientele to events at the fairgrounds. So I'm going to be pushing in this legislature as much as possible to make some improvements to the stage area, to the grandstand area, and to the track, especially in front of the. Every time I've gone up there during the fair and so forth, it seems to me the track area in front of the grandstand is always a mess.
It is often, I have to agree. I mean, the
And,
weather is,
It's very unattractive. I can understand the people that are going just for the demolition derbies and so forth. They probably aren't too particular about the grandstand and the shows or the stage area. But I think that should be a major consideration. What you have on your list seems very, very important. I think that I don't see anything there that I wouldn't agree with. But anyway, I've said enough, but that's my position.
for a number of years, we did have pretty good country singers or shows, and it got where we just lost too much money.
And I think the reason is the facility is
Yeah.
not up to par.
Well, we used to put 1,000 chairs on that dirt track. And then if it rained, of course, we were hauling sawdust and trying to get people out there without, and I agree, people don't want to walk, they don't want to pay $45 and walk through mud to watch it, and I understand that. And that's part of the reason that we decided that we just couldn't do those any longer, that type of event.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from is you should be planning to get back to somehow to be able to put on those kind of events and actually make some money for the fair board so you can continue to make progress and make improvements.
And I agree 100% that if we had the right facility, people would come from out of the county to something
I agree.
like that. I mean, if you get the right, I mean, the fact that the casino and hold a lot of those events, and they make it cheaper, but they get people there for other reasons. So their tickets are a little cheaper, but it has created some problems, And I've been, to be honest with you, I was surprised that Little Valley did as well as they did, Cattaraugus County this year.
Question historically, and I'm naive, I know your fair association owns your fairgrounds.
Mike, do you have your mic on, please?
Excuse me. Is that the model? Most counties, do they have a separate, or do any counties own
Not as far as I know. All of them are like in agriculture. We're like the Allegheny County Agricultural Society, and most of them are. Like I know Steuben is, Chautauqua County is, Pike is, Dunkirk, Erie County Fair is separate.
I think, well, just speaking for myself, I'm all in favor of doing something for the, trying to help the fair out board out too in the fairgrounds. But I'd like to see it be part of a bigger economic development picture, maybe work with our economic development team, maybe the planning department, something like that, that maybe would have the resources the fair board doesn't have to look into like planning and
All the help you can give us, we'd love to have it. I mean, of course, I'm just an old cowboy, but, so I don't know anything about this, but there are people, I'm sure, that could help us.
well, it's a perfect venue, a perfect location, you know, right off the expressway. It seems like whatever we could do to make it more prosperous for everybody, it would be good for the county and the residents, good for the community, and obviously good for the fair board. So,
You know, any suggestions like that of people that could help us, I mean, we'd be more than glad to have them, I guarantee.
How much does 20 grand buy in bleachers?
Well, actually, I think that's only one bleacher, and we need a couple. And it's about, well, we have 3 bleachers across the track from the grandstand now, and there's only room for like 2 more, like 20, what was it, 200 or 300 people?
Probably
200, 400 more people with each bleacher. Yeah, and actually that would be double. I mean, bleachers for 200 people is like 20 grand or thereabouts.
That's adequate enough, would get where
Well,
you want to be, or is
No,
that just
not really.
just
No.
being kind, only asking for that?
No, I'll be honest with you. I'm an old cowboy, and I own an indoor arena, probably the first one ever, individual one in New York State ever. I built it 50, 60 years ago. And then I was at Alfred University and taught there for 14 years at the new facility up there. And Houghton now has another big facility. That's what we really ought to have. We ought to have a big indoor arena covered. And even if they wanted to keep the old grandstand, cover it right up and have a great big indoor arena. That would be great. But now we're talking $500,000, $1 million probably. Maybe more than that. I mean, Alfred was way over $1 million back when we built it 14, 15, 16, 17 years ago. I left there 3 years ago. So we're talking a whole lot. But of course, that would be ideal. That would be ideal. But I agree that we do need more room. We need better facilities, especially to get people, like we get a few people from Buffalo, you know, and they come in and talk to us and things. But if we had a facility that, like even a better grandstand, I mean, we crowd people in it and pack it from time to time. Like we had 3 events this year that the grandstand was packed. You know, I mean, too close. But like I say, it's on the historical registry, but I do think that could be taken care of, and we could expand it or make it better. It's safe because it's inspected every year, but it's not as nice as many of them, that's for sure.
Are there other questions for President? Mr. Barnes? I'll get you in a minute, Mr.
yeah.
Sorry.
My last comment is that I think the fair board should think big. I think they should get someone to come in and give you a plan for updating some of the areas around, especially in the grandstand area, but whatever, for the whole fairgrounds. And have a plan that we can contribute to possibly over the years. But right now, of course, we're thinking of ways to spend this so-called free money that has come to us from the federal government to do and spend over the next 4 years. So I guess my suggestion would be for your group to do some thinking, get some outside help to make a plan, and then come to us as soon as possible with what your updated ideas would be, and then we can consider it, maybe approve part or all of it.
Well, I thank you, and I think that suggestion, I'm sure our very next meeting, that'll be the main topic. I'm almost positive it will be.
Mr. Harris?
Thanks. I guess probably a couple of comments more than questions, and maybe just to,
You should probably identify yourself as
the chairman did, but I'll do it as well. I'm Brooke Harris. Thank you.
from NAC, your position with National Association of Counties also.
I'll do that, yeah. I get the impression there's universal support for providing funding to the Fair Board. Hearing some of Mr. Barnes' comments, I also have a feeling maybe there's some wide variation in how much support. The ARPA money, that American Rescue Plan money that we're talking about, is a lot, but it's limited. And the board has a number of priorities beyond the Fair Board's considerations. So I guess what I would disagree, Gary, only in that I think we as a board can get to a comfortable spot where we can supply some funding for these must-do projects for the fair, like the water lines, gas lines, the paving, that kind of is time sensitive, right? I don't disagree that some long-term planning wouldn't be a good idea, but I think we could move on some of the stuff that we can afford to do. I don't think I'm comfortable talking about indoor arenas or talking about, rock and roll concerts and stuff like that, but some of the actual needs I think this board will support. Hey, Carissa.
Hi, Brooke. I agree with Mr. Harris, Legislator Harris's assessment. I also really think Legislator Barnes had a great suggestion with a plan for the long range thing. We could be spending ARPA monies on hiring a consultant to help the Fair Board with it. That would be something that would be an allowable ARPA expense that we could work with, and that might help them out as well.
Thank you.
That would be probably, I think that would get a lot of
A lot of positive public, awareness too of
Sure.
the thing. Yeah.
And also open up more opportunities down the road as you move forward and your strategic plan and what you want to look at for the future. I think it'll open up more opportunities having that behind you. So I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous idea, and I'm sure everybody back here agrees.
Before I lose my chance, I do have to mention a couple apprehensions that I've heard. One is that there might be some concern with some taxpayers, that we're using ARPA funds, public funds, towards improvements on private property. And I'm not asking for comment or anything on that. I'm just letting you know that's out there. I've heard that a couple times. And that's actually one of the reasons why I would feel uncomfortable using a large chunk of the ARPA money towards a project on the fairgrounds. The second thing is, like Gary mentioned, the fact that the fairgrounds themselves are utilized so infrequently over the course of the year, it makes it a little bit more challenging to justify big expenditures just for, and I'm not trying to diminish the importance of the fair, but the fair itself only lasts a week, and if you're putting big money towards just a week of use, it's something to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Other questions?
I just have a quick question, really. One of the things that I was wondering about, I used to be involved with kids getting scholarships, and I know this is a little morbid, but one of the things that the Allegheny County does is you can leave money in your will for scholarships, and I'm just wondering if you guys have ever thought of that as well, like a promotion maybe to have some money left into the, I mean, I'd be open to doing that as I get older. You know what I mean? Like looking for alternative ways to raise some money. The other question I have is it possible that schools and colleges could either lend you bleachers and things like that during the fair, or is there any type of program once the school gets rid of bleachers and things like that, that maybe you could, work with them to use them? I don't know. I'm one of those, let's think about things that we can do to recycle and repurpose things. So, but that might be something that a consultant could help you with as well. Some of those kinds of out there ideas, but just to help you guys raise some money on your own too. Not that I'm against, I'm kind of with Brooke on this, I think. We definitely need to improve some of the stuff at the fair, for sure. But I'm kind of an old fair girl myself, so.
Mr. Havey?
Some of the bleachers actually have been donated by schools, but for us to get some bleachers from a school and move them and then get them back, it's really a problem because, by the time we do that and the labor to get them moved and get them set up and then tear them down and get them back to the school, it just probably more than what it's worth to us in many ways.
Mr. Havey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm thinking the smart use of money as it relates to the fairgrounds is some of what's already been spoken of before. Things that are necessary now, emergency items, and then to fund a consultant to come up with a long-range plan, I think is a marvelous idea. We can't ignore the emergency items that are needed, some of them, but in order to get the fairgrounds back on a forward motion path, I think a consultant would be good money invested. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others? Comments? Mr. Demick?
I think you guys have this prioritized, number one, down through, is this how it's laid out, your
Well-
projects, or just general?
Well, it was pretty much in order that what we
Okay.
thought.
Well, I knew, I've been talking to you about the paving. I met yesterday with George and Dave up there, brought somebody in, Don Kernan, used to work for Blades for 40-some years, but we walked the grounds, measured up stuff. I was able to put together a basic estimate. I knew there was an estimate thrown to the A-team of about $250,000, and that didn't include the exit roads, any of the circle part of the exit road, and some other minor things, but we did that yesterday, and we went through all that and did a worst-case scenario, including actually bringing in a 7-foot mill to get a lot of that out of there, instead of taking the time to dig something out with an excavator or something. That mill will level it all at the same time for a 1 day's cost. So including that, and actually even 6 days of a paver if we needed it, worst-case scenario, we're looking at $230,000 for the paving, major paving, that whole thing, which is significantly a big savings. That includes following our procurement policy to the point where we're using already bid blacktop. We're using, if we need the paver or the mill, that's already bid. Utilizing municipal trucks and so on. So we could put this together. Our question would be if we can prep ourselves to be able to get it done this year, the time frame for a blacktop plant and so on. But you're talking over 2,000 ton of blacktop, which is a fair amount, especially in the places it needs to go. But it could certainly be done, but we did our homework on that, and that's out there. That's an ARPA fund possibility to be done. It'll easily meet those criterias if that's, starts off in the right direction, but that's the kind of things we need to do. I also wanted to make a comment, and I'm sure we'll have this discussion with the A-team on your equipment you've used from the county in the past and so on, and still be able to use it. Rich Ewell was here earlier. I'd have liked to have spoke to him. I didn't get a chance to, but being told by whom I don't know is telling you this, that the union and insurance company, I'm sure there are ways around that, but we need to look into that. We hear the same things with, I was a highway superintendent for a long time, we use county equipment, we're not union. They try to pull the same thing, it's not. Worst case scenario, I believe that we do an intermunicipal agreement every year with all the municipalities and the county. There's no reason that you couldn't be a part of that. So, you come up with a list of 4 or 5 people are going to run that. That's who we give to the insurance company and say, these are the guys that can run that. You can move on with it. I don't think that's a big issue.
That's
I
one
mean,
of the
we'll
best
talk
thing-
with them,
That's
but
one of the best things I've heard.
Right, well, I know that's a big issue, and, you know, you used to get personnel that would come and run it, but it's hard to get that stuff anymore, but I think we can certainly work something out. We'll have that discussion amongst that table back there, probably talking about it right now. But, I'm sure there's something we can put together for that, but, I like your list, and I agree 100% with the consultant part. You know, somebody's gotta lay out not only the design, but thought of what you need to do, you know, and be able to pick that stuff out. They got the eye for things the rest of us don't. So that's a huge thing, and then it's laid out. You can put together a 5 to 10-year plan, and move forward with it. So, that's something this board, if you're coming to us every year, which wouldn't be a bad thing, to give us what you think you need to do, we need to know a little bit more brass tacks, and they can put dollar amounts on stuff, you know, so, it's very simple. But I think that's a good idea, and good use of that money.
I think that's the best thing I've taken out of this, really, is the fact that we need to make that kind of a plan.
Right,
I think we do. I
absolutely.
agree.
I'll tell you this, Mr. Hurd, if you keep getting all this good news, you're gonna re-up for another term as president.
There you go.
You don't know how old I am.
Your son's the same age as Brooke.
No, my nephew. And it was my younger brother's boy.
So, any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I just want to thank you and your staff for everything you do, and the fair is a major part of this community, and all the events you host on the weekends, like 4-H and farming, that's huge in this community, and you have my full support.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Anybody else?
Back there, have anything you'd like to add that I missed?
Maybe I'll say something.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
I won't be that bad. I'm Dave Jennings, the Vice President of the Fair Board, and my helper George and I do a lot of work up to the fairgrounds, and when we're putting this list together, yeah, there's a lot of, I go along with the planning part of it, but there's a lot of other things that enter into this. On this list, the first 4 items are major things that we can't wait until fair season next year. We've got to move on this, because as Fred was up there yesterday, looking at the pavement and everything, we've got one stretch we're going to have to mill out, which costs a little bit more money. But if we let this go for another year or two, we're going to be up there milling the entire fairgrounds to bring it back into shape. So I guess my biggest point is the first 4 items on there are really our hit list for today that we really need to discuss, and because we've got to start moving one way or another, and we don't have enough money to do all this. The gas line does have a leak in it. If it's left up to us, we can't afford to put a new gas line in. We're gonna have to find that leak somewhere and patch it for the time being. And it's just a matter of, okay, we fix it today, where's it gonna leak tomorrow? And we've got a leak on one of our water lines. It's not a main line leak, it's a service line that had to be on for fair. Okay, so guess what? It leaked all the week of fair, and our utility bill was up. We probably lost 5,000 gallons of water through there. So it's not a big issue, but that leak's gonna get bigger all the time. And then we mentioned the health department. Yeah, they're very nice to us. I have nothing bad to say about your health department. They brought up a lot of things that we've gotta address before next year. And we went back and looked at the inspection from a year ago, and we pretty much took care of 98% of the problems they found. And they were commending us for it. And, you know, with this electric line and the inspections, we gotta keep moving ahead. Everything is set still up there for so many years that we've gotta get moving on it and bring everything up to date. And that's basically all I've got on it.
Thank you, Dwight.
Yeah, Fred, what was the total number on that paving for,
230?
so with that, and if you look at the the 10 items that you have, not just the first 4. If you look at those 10 items, you're probably looking at another 100,000.
More than that. It'll be more than
Yeah.
that with the equipment, if you buy those.
Probably a
two.
little bit more by now.
So I agree. We just need to focus on what you need right now. And it looks to me like even those 10 items are in the ballpark of where I would think we could support. You're probably looking at, what, 400,000?
Yeah, in that neighborhood.
So.
We'll have that discussion when we get around to ARPA money again.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's a number I'm fairly comfortable with.
Right.
How long's your gas line there that you need?
What?
How long's your gas line here?
I'm gonna say it's almost 1,000 feet from the meter to, and it's been repaired before, I'm gonna say like 8, 10 years ago. They put in a new section, but there again, they didn't use new pipe, and nowadays we can use plastic, which is gonna be better for everybody. We'd have to start right at the meter.
Okay.
The problem with the gas line is there's gonna be a lot of missowing, under the roads, under the buildings, basically, or between the buildings where you can't get to dig, so you're gonna have to missow it.
Other questions or comments? Well, we want to thank you, gentlemen, and folks back there. It's a lot of information.
Yes,
Well put together. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just a quick question for Carissa. Next steps, do we need some more solid numbers maybe?
I think you need to tell us what the board wants to do. Is the board interested in like these first 4 items off of this list? Then I think probably the admin team with maybe some help from DPW or some others can work with the fair board to figure out where they got these numbers from and how we can work with that to try to fund it. So if you remember right, the ARPA monies come with stipulations. You have to meet the federal procurement guidelines, which means all this has to be bid, and there has to be other things in place that I'm not sure happened when they got these estimates. Not that these estimates are bad estimates, but if we use ARPA monies, we need to make sure we run through all that. Whereas if there's other monies available that aren't ARPA, perhaps that's a better use. So I think on the A-team, the administrative team, that's what A-team stands for, the administrative team were to maybe work with someone from the fair board to kind of work through some of these issues. We could come back to the board with some ideas on how to help fund things. But I need to know from this board what your priorities are and what the direction is.
I know the one thing related to the paving thing, there's like an early October end of paving season. And so if something's going to happen with that for this season, it has to be on a fast track. So, Mr. Harris, you
Well, I guess that's it, but it seems like there's consensus, right? That we want to provide support. I guess, so the question is, do we want to just look at the top 4? Do we want to look at all 10? I mean, we don't want admin, slogging their way through all 10 of these items if the board is only interested in maybe doing the top 3 or 4.
I think we're gonna need to get some better figures like the gas line. I think we gotta put some dollars on that before we can really say, it could be 10 grand, it could be 50 grand plus. You don't know that. I think somebody needs to come in, same way with the water lines. I think we need to put some figures on these to really move forward with them. Just, same way with the paving. We did that, so.
And that's a admin DPW fair board thing?
Right. Right.
And I think that would determine whether we do the 4 or we can do a few more on their list of, so. We do need prices.
I think the original request that came in March included a $75,000 estimate for the gas and electric. And then that did not have water in it. So that only had gas and electric. Because I had a number of about 300,000 before you did water or anything else, and that was using 225 for the paving project, so I was close to the number that you threw out today. And the gas and electric being the 75 grand. So that was my original preliminary numbers as of March, out of May 26th was that.
County Attorney Allison.
I will also just state to the board too that in addition to what the county administrator and county treasurer have already told everyone, that some of the options that also can be discussed too are that we can give money to the Fair Board to use through appropriate legal mechanisms, by appropriate state statute. So that is one way. However, if we do decide also though to, by giving them that money, also assist with them in other ways too, and the county is going to do things in that manner. We do also have to keep in mind we have our own procurement policies and procedures. If the Fair Board is not going to go out and do that themselves, that we also need to follow. So when we talk about things about, getting quotes and getting information for paving projects or gas lines or water lines, we have to think about those things too and the time in which it will take us to get that information.
So Allison, do I hear you saying in order to move forward on this and meet deadlines, it might be a better path to, give a certain portion of money to the Fair Board to run through these projects?
I think we won't know that until we know what priorities you want. So, or do you want to just say, we're happy to support the Fair Board and maybe have, our legal team treasurer sit down with maybe a Fair Board representative and walk through these things and come back to this board and tell you how you could do that? That probably would be the easiest way all the way around.
And I'll mention also that the Fair Board has put in their 2023 budget request, which is for $110,000 versus the $8,000 that they have normally asked for. And in that, they have asked for operating costs, expenses that have increased, the painting of the barn, roofs, the bleachers, and a new tractor. So we're talking two different things here, because there is one request for the paving, the water line, the gas line, electric, and there's also their budget allocation that they have requested as well. So we have options, they have options, so we've just got to get whatever you guys want to do in line so that we can move forward and look at the rest of it.
I don't know if it's the right time or not, but I would like to make a motion for our administrative team to sit down with a Fair Board and go through some of these costs to come up with some prices and quotes to figure out the best way. I think that there is certainly, agreement to support a portion of what we feel are emergency things that need to be taken care of, so roundabout way of motion.
Do we need a motion for that or just a direction?
Or direct.
Well, I'll do whatever you tell me. That's that's in the local law and the administrator that anything legal you tell me to do, I will. So that sounds like a direction. I don't
Okay,
necessarily need a
direction.
motion.
Okay,
Is that okay if we just,
that's fine.
we'll tell her what to do. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, sir, Ms. Haney?
I had another thought. You're welcome. If we go through and we authorize some money for repairs and so forth without the benefit of an advisor or something similar, I might suggest that we still fund some sort of advisor to advise the fair on how they could improve their operation going forward, much as what Mr. Barnes was saying, so that they could increase attendance, increase their offerings of the fair, et cetera. So the advisor thing shouldn't be off the table just because we're spending money on repairs without it.
Agreed. Carissa?
Yeah, I think we can help figure that out too. I just want to recognize that this is a great Fair Board, but as far as I know, you're all volunteers and this isn't your day job, whereas this board here has all of us as employees that this is our day job. the county board here is that you have the benefit of you have paid staff that can help figure this out rather than trying to have this volunteer group figure it out for you. So I think really take advantage of us and all the people that we have working with us as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Are you ready for a motion to adjourn? Mr. Seer? Support, Mr. Havey. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.